You didn't die. You didn't move to another country. You didn't betray me in some dramatic way that gave me a reason to hate you. You just stopped texting back, stopped making plans, stopped showing up, and somehow that hurt more than any fight ever could. I'm going to tell you something that's going to wreck you and finally help you let go. Ready? This wasn't about you not being enough. This was about outgrowing a friendship that neither of you knew how to end, and here's what you don't know yet. You were 8 years old the first time you learned that. Closeness was temporary, and you've been holding on too tight ever since. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you will rewrite everything you thought you knew about why losing them hurt so much. It wasn't the distance that broke you. It wasn't that they got busy, or found new friends, or moved on with their life. It was something so much quieter. You realized they'd already made the decision to leave before they stopped answering. You felt the shift weeks before they went silent. The texts getting shorter, the plans getting vaguer, the energy changing from "I can't wait to see you" to "yeah, maybe, I'll let you know." You tried harder, reached out more, suggested plans they used to love, and every time they said sorry, "I'm busy," without offering another time. You knew. You weren't losing a friend. You were being slowly erased from their life. And here's what you'll never forget. They didn't even tell you. No conversation, no closure, no "hey, I think we've grown apart." They just faded. Like you were a phase they outgrew. Like the years you spent building this friendship meant so little they didn't even owe you an explanation. You checked their social media, saw them with new friends, doing the things you used to do together, living a life that no longer included you. And the worst part, they looked fine. Like losing you didn't even register. Like you were so easy to replace that they didn't even notice. You were gone. You weren't their best friend. You were their placeholder until someone better came along. But the real pain wasn't that they left. The real pain was what you did to yourself, trying to understand why you've obsessed. Scrolled through old messages looking for the moment it changed. Analyzed every conversation for signs you missed, wondered if you said something wrong, did something wrong, were too much, or not enough, or too needy, or too distant. You blamed yourself for a loss you didn't cause. You made their abandonment about your worth. And then you did something even worse. You started performing in all your other friendships, monitoring how quickly people texted back, over an oilizing tone, scared that if you weren't interesting enough, funny enough, available enough, they'd leave too. You turned every friendship into an audition. You didn't just lose them. You lost your ability to trust that anyone would stay. Close your eyes. You're 8 years old again. Can you see it? Can you feel what it felt like to realize people leave without warning? Maybe it was a best friend who found a new best friend and forgot you existed. Maybe it was someone who promised forever and then disappeared. Maybe it was the first time you learned that closeness doesn't guarantee permanence. You learned early that love is fragile, that friendships can end without explanation, that if someone leaves, it must mean you weren't worth fighting for. So you started holding on tighter, became the friend who always reached out first, the one who planned everything, the one who tried harder, gave more, showed up consistently, hoping that if you just did enough, they'd stay. But they didn't. You weren't losing friends because you weren't enough. You were attracting people who weren't capable of showing up the way you did. And that's when the truth revealed itself. Not about them, about the wound you've been carrying since you were 8 years old. The wound that made you believe that being chosen once didn't mean being kept. The one that whispered, if they really valued me, they wouldn't leave. If I was important, they'd make time. Maybe I'm just the friend people tolerate until someone better shows up. You didn't create that wound. This friendship just confirmed it. So here's the truth you've been avoiding. The one that's going to hurt. More than anything I've said so far, you weren't afraid of losing them. You were afraid that losing them proved you were forgettable. That's why you held on so long. That's why you kept reaching out, even when they stopped responding. That's why you couldn't just let it end. Because accepting the truth would have meant facing something unbearable. You weren't the problem. The problem was that you were fighting for a friendship they'd already decided to let go. And then, something broke. Not your heart. That had been slowly cracking for months. Something deeper. The story you'd been telling yourself since you were 8 years old. The one that said, if they leave, it's because I wasn't worth staying for. That story, it finally died. The shift didn't happen when they stopped responding. Not when you saw them with new friends. Not when you realized they'd moved on without saying goodbye. It happened when you asked yourself a question you'd been running from since childhood. Not what did I do wrong, but why was I holding on to someone who already let go? When you stopped trying to earn their presence and started honoring your own. When you realized the person you betrayed wasn't them, it was you. You stopped reaching out the day you realized friendship isn't supposed to feel like begging, and silence is a complete answer. Here's what you learned when you finally let go. They didn't leave because you weren't enough. They left because the version of themselves that needed you doesn't exist anymore. People change, friendships evolve, and sometimes the people who were perfect for one chapter of your life aren't meant to be in the next dot. Not because either of you failed, because growth isn't always aligned. You needed depth, they needed surface. You valued consistency, they valued novelty. You showed up. They showed up when it was convenient. You weren't compatible anymore, and neither of you knew how to say it. You don't resent them anymore. Not really, because the anger dissolved the moment you realized they didn't owe you a friendship just because you had history. And you didn't owe them your energy just because you had memories. Here's the truth that nobody tells you about friendship breakups. Sometimes, people leave because staying would require a version of themselves they're not willing to be. They'd have to show up consistently. Prioritize the friendship. Be vulnerable. Invest time, and they weren't capable of that. Not with you, maybe not with anyone. Their leaving wasn't rejection. It was self-preservation, and you holding on wasn't love. It was fear. You're rebuilding now. Not the friendship, that's gone. But your understanding of what friendship means. Someone who knows. Friendship is not history. Friendship is presence. And you will never again beg someone to care. You are releasing the belief that longevity equals loyalty. You are honoring the friendships that ended without making them mean you're unworthy. You are learning that mutual effort is not negotiable. You are refusing to overfunction for people who undervalue you. And if someone can't meet you with the same energy you bring, you walk. Not with bitterness, not with drama, with clarity. Because you finally understand. Losing a friend who stops showing up is not lost. It's liberation from a one-sided friendship you were too loyal to leave. So here's the final truth, the one you'll carry forward. You weren't forgettable. You were just memorable to someone who didn't know how to hold on to people. They didn't leave because you weren't enough. They left because staying would have required more than they were willing to give. And now you know, you don't need someone who chooses you once. You need someone who keeps choosing you, even when it's inconvenient. If this landed in your chest like it was written for you, drop a blue heart in the comments. And if you're still holding on to someone who already let go, I need you to hear this one more time. You weren't forgettable. You were just memorable to someone who didn't know how to hold on to people. Stop reaching out to people who've already walked away. You don't need someone who chooses you once. You need someone who keeps choosing you, even when it's inconvenient. I'll see you in the next one.